amazing tunes. Imagine standing in the most powerful room in the entire world, a room filled with the smartest, most educated men alive, generals who had won 100 battles, magicians who had studied magic their whole lives, scholars who had read every book ever written. Now imagine that every single one of them is completely, absolutely, totally stumped, stuck, unable to help.
I dreamed 2 dreams last night. 2 dreams that shook me to my very core, and not one of you, not one man in all of Egypt, can tell me what they mean.
This was a crisis. In ancient Egypt, dreams were not just random pictures you saw while sleeping. Dreams were considered messages, warnings, glimpses of the future. And Egypt's king had dreamed something terrifying, something he could not shake even after he woke up. But here is the most incredible thing. God already had the answer ready, and the person he had chosen to deliver that answer was not a general, not a scholar, not even an Egyptian. He was a forgotten prisoner in a dark dungeon below the city, a young man named Joseph. How did this prisoner end up holding the answer that would save an entire nation? And how does God sometimes take the people the world forgets and use them for something extraordinary? Let me take you back to where this amazing story really begins. Joseph was not supposed to be here. He was a young man, probably in his late 20s by now, and he had been in Egypt for years, far from home, far from his family, far from everything he loved. You see, Joseph had a very hard past. His own brothers had been so jealous of him that they had sold him as a slave when he was just a teenager. Can you imagine? The people who were supposed to protect him, the people who shared his home and his dinner table, had treated him like he was worth nothing. But even in that terrible moment, God had not abandoned Joseph, not even a little bit. Joseph had worked faithfully for an Egyptian official named Potiphar. He had done everything right. And then, through no fault of his own, he had been falsely accused and thrown into prison. Life had not been fair to Joseph, not even close. Now here is something you might think would be surprising, but it is actually the key to this whole story. Even in prison, Joseph was not angry at God. Even when things were hard and confusing and deeply unfair, Joseph kept trusting. He kept praying. He kept being kind to the people around him, just like how you might keep trusting a parent, even when you do not understand why a rule exists. Joseph trusted that God could see what he could not see yet. Something else remarkable had happened too. God had given Joseph a very special gift. When people had dreams they could not understand, Joseph could interpret them. He could explain what they meant. God gave him this wisdom not to show off, but to help others. And 2 years ago, Joseph had done exactly that for 2 of Pharaoh's officials who had been thrown in prison. He had told them what their dreams meant, and everything had come true exactly as Joseph said. But then, when those men were released, they forgot all about Joseph. 2 whole years passed, and Joseph waited.
Lord, I don't understand why I'm still here, but you've never left me. I'm going to trust you with today, even when I can't see tomorrow.
Have you ever had to wait for something really important? Something that felt like it would never come? Joseph waited, and God was working the whole time, even in the silence.
You, the prisoner Joseph, you are to come with me immediately. Pharaoh himself has summoned you.
Pharaoh? What could Pharaoh possibly want with me?
And suddenly, in one moment, everything changed. The cupbearer who had been released 2 years earlier had finally remembered Joseph. He had told Pharaoh about this young Hebrew prisoner who could interpret dreams, and Pharaoh, desperate for answers that none of his wisest men could give, had sent for him. Now, before we continue, let's think about this moment. Joseph had no idea what was about to happen. He did not know that Pharaoh had 2 troubling dreams. He did not know that he was about to walk into the most important room in the world. He only knew one thing. Imagine walking into a room like that. Imagine being the kid from somewhere else, the one everyone is staring at, the one who everyone assumes cannot possibly have the answer. Maybe you have felt like that before, like you did not belong, like everyone expected you to fail. Joseph felt it too, but he walked in anyway.
I have heard that you can interpret dreams, that when God shows you a dream, you can tell what it means. Is this true?
I cannot. I myself cannot.
Wait. Did Joseph just say he cannot interpret dreams? Yes! That was not a mistake. That was actually the most important thing Joseph could have said. Because in that moment, Joseph made absolutely clear where his wisdom came from.
I cannot do this myself, but God can, and it is God who will give Pharaoh the answer he is looking for.
That right there, that moment of honesty, that was wisdom. Real wisdom, not showing off, not pretending. Joseph knew the difference between his own ability and God's ability, and he was not embarrassed to say it in front of everyone.
Then let us see if your God can give you what my wisest men could not find. I was standing on the bank of the great Nile River, and out of the water came 7 cows, 7 beautiful, healthy, fat cows. They began to graze on the green grass of the river bank. But then 7 more cows came up from the river, and these were unlike anything I have ever seen, thin, sickly, so gaunt and hollow that it was terrible to look at them. And then something impossible happened. The thin, terrible cows ate the 7 healthy ones, all of them. And yet, after eating them, the thin cows were still just as thin, just as terrible as before, as if they had eaten nothing at all.
Okay, family, that is a strange dream. Fat cows eaten by thin cows who stay thin? What does that mean? But wait, Pharaoh had a second dream too.
In my second dream, I saw a stalk of grain growing from the earth, and on this one stalk grew 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful and ripe. But then 7 more heads grew on the same stalk, withered and thin and scorched by the east wind, and the thin heads swallowed up the 7 good ones. I told both dreams to every magician, every wise man in Egypt, and not one of them could tell me what it means.
And here's where something extraordinary happened. God gave Joseph the interpretation. Not a guess, not a theory, a clear, complete, certain answer. And the courage to say it out loud to the most powerful man on earth.
Pharaoh, both dreams have one meaning. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 full heads of grain are 7 years. 7 years of great abundance such as Egypt has never seen. More food than you can possibly imagine. Crops so plentiful the ground will seem to overflow. But after those 7 years will come 7 years of famine, 7 years of terrible hunger. And the famine will be so severe that all the abundance will be forgotten. It will be as if the good years never happened.
The room was completely silent, because everyone could feel it. This was truth. This was not a performer entertaining the court. This was a young man delivering a message far bigger than himself. But Joseph did not just deliver a warning and sit down. God gave him something else too, a plan. And this is where wisdom becomes leadership.
The reason God has shown this dream twice, Pharaoh, is because the matter is settled. God has decided it, and he will bring it about soon. So now, let Pharaoh look for a wise and discerning man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Who is this prisoner to make suggestions to Pharaoh?
Think about what Joseph just did. He walked in as a prisoner, someone with no power, no title, no connections, and yet he spoke with such clarity and confidence that he offered a plan of action to the ruler of the most powerful empire in the world. That is not arrogance. That is what happens when a person is truly connected to God. The wisdom is not theirs. They are just the delivery system.
Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners throughout the land of Egypt to collect 1/5 of all the harvest during the 7 good years. Let them store it under Pharaoh's authority, grain kept in the cities, preserved for the 7 years of famine, so that Egypt and all its people will not be destroyed by the hunger that is coming.
Can we find anyone like this man, a man in whom is the Spirit of God? Since God has shown you all this, and there is no one as discerning and wise as you, I am placing you in charge of my household, and all my people will do what you say. Only with respect to my throne will I be greater than you.
From a prison to a palace, from forgotten to second most powerful person in the world, in one day. And family, this is so important. Notice that Pharaoh said it himself. The reason he chose Joseph was not because Joseph was the tallest, the strongest, the richest, or the most well-connected. The reason was because Pharaoh recognized something in Joseph that he could not find anywhere else, the Spirit of God. Now, you might be thinking, wait, is the story over? Is everything perfect now? Not quite, because being given a great responsibility is not the same as everything being easy. Joseph still had to actually do the work. 7 full years of work. Organizing an entire empire. Preparing for a disaster most people did not believe was coming. Can you imagine trying to get everyone to save grain for a disaster that had not happened yet? Some Egyptians probably thought it was unnecessary, maybe even a little crazy. Joseph had to lead with wisdom and conviction even when people could not see what he saw, just like how sometimes you have to make a right choice even when the people around you do not understand why yet. Just as God had told Pharaoh through Joseph, after 7 years of abundance came 7 years of famine, and it was not just Egypt. The hunger spread across the entire region. People in every direction were struggling to find food. And do you know who was running those storehouses? Who was in charge of feeding all those hungry people? Joseph, the forgotten prisoner, the boy his brothers had sold. Now, through God's wisdom and planning, he was feeding the entire world. And here's a truth that might be the most powerful thing in this entire story. What Joseph's brothers meant for harm, what the false accuser meant for harm, what those long years in prison seemed to promise would be harm, God had woven all of it together into something that saved thousands upon thousands of lives. God can take the hardest, most unfair things in your life and turn them into something that helps other people in ways you cannot even imagine yet. Years later, Joseph would have the most remarkable reunion with his brothers, the very ones who had thrown him into a pit and sold him. But that is a story for another day. What we want to focus on right now is the lesson Joseph carried through everything. The lesson that changed his life. The lesson that changed Egypt. The lesson that could change yours.
There were years in that prison when I could not see any reason for being there. Years when the silence felt very long. But I kept believing that God sees what we cannot see, and I was right. He always was working. I just could not see the whole picture yet.
There is a word for what Joseph had. The Bible calls it wisdom, but wisdom is not just being smart. Wisdom is not just knowing a lot of facts. Wisdom is understanding what God is doing and cooperating with it. Wisdom is knowing the difference between your own ability and God's ability, just like Joseph told Pharaoh, I cannot, but God can. Wisdom is staying faithful in the small, invisible, hard seasons, because you trust that God is preparing you for something you cannot see yet. And here is how this connects to your life today. You might not be in a literal prison, but maybe you are in a waiting season. Maybe something unfair has happened to you. Maybe you have a gift that feels like it has not found its place yet. Maybe people have underestimated you. God sees you, just like he saw Joseph. And he is not done writing your story. Just like Joseph, God gives us wisdom not to keep for ourselves, but to use for others. When you help a friend understand something at school, that is wisdom serving others. When you stay kind, even when someone is unkind to you, that is wisdom. When you tell the truth, even when it is hard, that is wisdom. When you trust God, even when you cannot see what he is doing, that is wisdom. And sometimes, the wisdom God places in one person changes the lives of thousands. Never think your faithfulness is too small to matter. Joseph could not see the storehouses when he was sitting in the prison. He only had today, and today, he chose to trust God. That is all any of us can do, and it is enough. Before you go, let's take a moment to think about this story together as a family. Because the best way to let a story like Joseph's really sink in is to talk about it. Here is a question for the youngest in your family. Joseph kept trusting God, even when life was really hard and unfair. Can you think of a time when something felt unfair? What helped you keep going? And for the older kids and teenagers, what is a gift or a talent God has given you? And have you ever thought about how it might help other people someday? And for the parents, is there an area of your life right now where you need to trust that God is working even in the silence? What would it look like to choose faithfulness in that place today? Here is your challenge for this week. When something feels unfair or confusing, try saying this simple prayer that reflects what Joseph modeled. Lord, I cannot see the whole picture, but you can. I choose to trust you today. And here's your memory verse from Proverbs, a book of the Bible filled with the kind of wisdom Joseph had. Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Trust with all your heart, not some of it, all of it, just like Joseph. Let's pray together. Lord, thank you for the story of Joseph. Thank you that you never abandoned him, not in the pit, not in the prison, and not in the palace. Thank you that you see each of us. Whatever season we are in, help us to trust you with all of our hearts. Even when life feels confusing or unfair, give us wisdom that serves others and not just ourselves. And remind us that you are always working, even when we cannot see it. Amen. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe for more biblical adventures. Stay blessed and see you in the next story.